said, watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of Trap or Die Podcast. I'm your host of the Trap or Die Podcast, Mual. Got the man AJ checking in right now. Dre is on the way. Let's get the administrative items going. Matter of fact, hold on. What up? Shout out to Jay Tizzy. Ben's in the chat. If you are tapping in live to the YouTube side, man, we definitely appreciate you all watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. On the audio side, same thing, man. Hit that follow button if you are brand spanking new to the Trap or Die Podcast, man. Or if you just haven't hit that follow button yet. And if you want to give us a rating and review, we appreciate that too. It's free to do so, and it takes 10 seconds to show you support that way. You know, so we definitely appreciate that. Administrative items. What am I missing? Morning show Friday. This Friday, no morning show tomorrow. And all 32 tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern with the gang, the day ones, man. Nick, Rick, and Raph. So yeah, 7 p.m. tomorrow with them. AJ, man, 9 days later. It feels like it's been like 7 months since the game ended, bro. I don't know. I feel like I'm in this frozen time period, bro. Like I don't know what to do with myself right now, bro. Like I've been decompressing. I feel better than I was a week ago. Not about the actual event that happened on Sunday, but I feel better than I am a week ago. I've gotten completely away from football from the standpoint of like doing work. And that feels good, but we won't have to ramp it back up soon. How have you been since the last time we did a show?
I've been straight, man. Just just dealing with real life situations. You feel me?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, there's business and then there's personal stuff going on that has taken up that time. But in the back of my mind, I guess when it comes to what we do with Trap or Die, just been thinking about how this team can improve to push themselves to the next level. Not even necessarily concerned about Philadelphia, but more so just representing the NFC as a whole. And, I created a little wish list last week that I shared on X. We know that, our partner Dre also started doing mock drafts and getting his Mel Kiper on, or maybe Mike Mayock.
Whichever one is more right. That's what I do.
But yeah, doing that and also like wish list. And I think one thing that we'll touch on today, and I feel like we probably all in agreement, some major news dropped yesterday, and that was step one of my wish list. And it's starting to come to fruition as far as the reality of that player wanting out. Now will it get done? Be intriguing. Definitely listen to a little bit of sports talk radio today as I was with my father. We got some, forget what the fans are talking about. We got some media pundits that cover the team that's just scared as fuck. Like, excuse my language. And they've been on the show before, but they just scared. And it's just weird to me. But yeah, we'll touch on it, man. I ain't really... of course, you would have wanted to be celebrating this weekend with that opportunity, but the love for the team and just like the high hopes is at an all-time level. Honestly, from me being a fan since being an adult, also representing guys on the team, it's the highest that I've ever seen. I just left urgent care, with my pops. And the first person that we ran into that was, taking his vitals had Redskin paraphernalia all over him. He had I think a Washington Commanders Stanley Cup and everything. And he was talking about Washington, even as we departed upon urgent care. He's mocking a Dallas Cowboys fan that's right there. Then another lady is an Eagles fan with her baby who has on an Eagles shirt. And, he's like, we still the best in the NFC, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it's at an all-time high, bro. As Dre takes a sip from his Washington mug. So, I definitely just, I guess, like, that's I know it's a long answer, but that's like the best feeling in regards of the loss. You don't want to lose, but you see that fans are engaged at a whole different level. Even our engagement that we have here at Trap or Dive, people are very intrigued and have high hopes for this 2025 season that's going to be coming up.
Yeah, Dre, we was just checking in before you got in. I was really just saying, how has your time been since we last did a show? I said I felt like it's been forever since we did a show. And I guess it's different now that our season is officially over. A couple of our timelines or time frames with the scheduling has changed. I've been decompressing. I've actually been watching this show called Silo on Apple TV. Silo is pretty.
I need a new show, bro.
Silo is pretty captivating. I'm not gonna hold you. And I started it probably like 3 days ago. I'm already on season 2. I don't know if that's like a good pace or something. I know people.
Damn, what you watch? This is like 10 episodes.
I think it's like 10 episodes. Yeah.
Is it an hour show or 30 minutes?
It's like 45 to an hour, depend.
Okay.
But
I don't know how y'all be doing it, boy.
Hey, bro, you watch? I can do it, bro.
Bro, you AJ watches Love Is Blind.
I know.
Like, I do it. No, I do
Love
it.
is blind, and it will take over your mind.
I'm not even against that. I get it, but I'm saying like that's how you compare. Like if you can sit there and binge watch when they put out the first 3-4 episodes. They used to do all the episodes of Love Is Blind, but when they do like the first 3-4, you watch them Jones, bro. I do the same thing with these shows, bro. But Silo is how I've been getting over things. Or letting time pass. I've been staying away from like football, like doing actual work. I got to get back into it. Draft's about to start. Free agency's loading up soon. But like this part of time, and AJ mentioned the personal side. Everybody, we going through some things. I ain't want to everybody the situation, but y'all know like we going through some things over here. So it is what it is. You dealing with that too. But Dre, what's going on, man? How's things been since our last time we've done the show? Little man starting up basketball again too, right?
Yeah, I mean, well,
it
never ended for him. Like he's basketball all year round, pretty much. Like he just finished.
He in the AAU circuit.
Yeah, well, he doing county league ball right now. He finished up his school. They went to the playoffs, and PG County. You know how competitive PG County is. I mean, they had kids in 8th grade, 6'7" out there, man. It's hard to beat them type of dudes. But now he's doing like county ball, so he's playing some of the same players. So we dealing with that on the weekends. But outside of that, man, like shit, y'all know what I've been doing. The last time I texted y'all, I was like, bro, like AJ said, I'm over here doing my mock off season over here. Like I put together a whole list, and I kid you not, I haven't done one of these in a long time. That just goes to show you like how engaged I am with everything right now. Like I'm excited. Like I'm over here trying to think like Adam Peters. Like how are we going to maneuver this off season? Like I done put this out already. Shout out to Chuck G on Twitter. That's how I got. Chuck told me when he seen my list, he said, man, Dre, I'm still not even over the Philly game. I can't even get into this shit right now. I said, well, bro, this is my coping mechanism right now. And it's like thinking of how we can get better. How can we go back and beat Philadelphia next year? This is what I'm thinking about right now. And that shit, it's just January. I mean, but you got to think, though. I mean, kind of like AJ was saying, like, this is the latest we've kind of got into like mock off seasons and stuff like this. I mean, typically we are almost in November when we're doing this type of stuff because we are checked out of the season, checked out of football. So I'm just getting into everything. Actually, I can't wait for the senior. What is it? The combine that's coming up this month. Free agency next month. So yeah, I'm next thing I'm doing is checking off my key dates list for the NFL.
Well, good thing for this show. We are starting to entertain some trade possibilities. We're starting to entertain some realistic options for Washington. And you know what dawned on me earlier today? And everybody in the chat, think about it like this. I think that we were truly collectively as a fan base. I'm not talking about individuals, but I think we were truly delusional over the past. I'm gonna just say that the past owner era. I don't say his name no more, but I think we were truly delusional there was moments where you did get some trades here and there, right? Like no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But when you talk about like the superstars that was available, whether it was rumored or whether it was actually reported, such as a Myles Garrett this time around, who put out there that he's requesting a trade, or a Cooper Kupp, who, while he's on the older side, he's still a viable receiver, like if he's healthy, right? The commander's name is getting floated out there. Previous years, you're talking about a fan base and media pundits who talk about this team and say, I think Washington needs to put in a bid for this guy. Washington needs to put in an offer for this guy. Make something shake for this top tier player, thinking that Washington has a chance. And Washington realistically never has any chances for like the top player at his position or top five, like actually what AJ said in one of his tweets, top 5 player like in the NFL or top 10 player in the NFL, or top 10 player at his position, respective position. Like you talk about it, but you don't really have a chance. I think this year, and the reason why all 3 of these names, T. Higgins, Cooper Kupp, you see the name of the show title, and Myles Garrett, is a conversation because Washington realistically has a chance at all 3 of these guys this year. I want to kind of, I don't want us to like dive deep into a player just yet because I want to kind of sort this out. But what are y'all thoughts on that conversation in itself? And then we can talk about boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, was riding in the car, listening to some sports radio. Grant and Danny, they seem to be trying to push a narrative that this may have been fluke, as far as Washington getting to the NFC Championship game. I don't know how you make it to the NFC Championship game or AFC Championship game. I don't know. That's just a weird concept to me. Overall, I think it's just some people not necessarily getting the things that they wanted and, trying to push in other subtopics such as a sophomore slump and stuff like that. But, I mean, the reality is you got a quarterback that's a superstar on a rookie contract. So when you have that and you also reach a level of an NFC Championship game with not amazing pieces around you, but you cultivated a hell of a culture that you'll continue to be able to build on with this guy that is a superstar on and off the field, you will be mentioned in these national conversations as a team knocking on the door to get to the next level. It's kind of like how we started the season off. Could Washington be the Houston Texans? To be honest with you, Washington's already surpassed the Houston Texans. Like the Texans didn't get to the AFC Championship game last year.
And fired their OC.
Yeah, and they fired Kubiak. Slow it.
Yeah.
Bobby Slowik.
He was a head coach. We interviewed him last year.
Yeah, and a lot of people were saying he was the guy, but if you really look at it, he's a defensive guy that was calling plays, and it was very predictable offensively. It's just that C.J. Stroud overcame some of that play calling. But at the end of the day, like I said, Washington has surpassed the Houston Texans season that they had last year. Also, Jaden Daniels surpassed C.J. Stroud as far as that rookie conversation. So yes, you will be mentioned in the national media eyes. You see clips of Marcus Spears saying Myles Garrett in Washington, D.C., the DMV area, should make it happen. You feel me? Because you're knocking on the door. You have an abundance of money to spend because you haven't had a blue chip player such as a Myles Garrett that you've had to spend money on. You have draft assets. You have a young superstar quarterback that you can build around and some pieces that you also can build around as well. So it's only going to make sense for Washington to be that hot name going into this offseason, which for us that covered the team and fans of has started later than we've been accustomed to. I mean, you're several weeks away from the combine. The Senior Bowl just happened Saturday. It's like we're so quick to forget that, but Washington has been in this the entire duration of the time that you haven't even been mentally able to process like, oh, the combine is right around the corner. You feel me? Trades can happen this week. that's why the timing of a Myles Garrett, putting out a release like that, a Cooper Kupp, whatever. If we're not mistaken, I also tweeted about this as well. Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff got traded during Super Bowl week. Some years ago, Washington also traded for Alex Smith and Kendall Fuller to the Chiefs during Super Bowl week. So these things can happen during this week as well. So I think that's something that we also have to be mindful of when these players are coming out there with their own personal graphic statements or requesting of trades.
Yeah, it is kind of surreal to see us kind of in these conversations because, as Maul alluded to, in the past, these conversations was more Washington fan generated. Like, we generated these conversations. Like, oh man, we should get this guy. We should get this guy. Like, every guy that becomes available, especially if he's of a big name, the fan base is putting us in that conversation. But it's not the fan base anymore. It's the big national media guys. It's even our own media guys. It's like, oh man, they're trying to connect the dots with certain players. And I mean, that's what you get when you have a season like what Washington had, which obviously we haven't experienced in a while. But I mean, you see the quarterback. The quarterback is going to, have players wanting to come here to play with him, but not even just the quarterback. Dan Quinn. I mean, we've seen that on a scale last year alone before we even played a game. We had guys like Luvu and Chin signing here when they could have went other places, but they wanted to be here. Like Chin betted on himself. He wanted to play in a Dan Quinn defense, Frankie Luvu. And that's going to happen on a higher scale as this goes on. I mean, that's a proven guy. And it's not even just the defense. I mean, you look at the videos that Washington's putting out after they're winning games. That locker room looks so fun. Like, everybody sees that. Like, who doesn't want to be a part of that type of culture, where everybody's saying good things about each other. Everybody's hyping each other up. The coach is hyping each other up. Like, you never really see Dan Quinn throwing anyone under the bus. You never really hear anything negative pertaining to Dan Quinn when it comes to players. And, this is a relationship business. That word gets around. Like, players hear about those things. Like, I want to go play for a coach like that. So I mean, that's going to get out there. But again, I mean, they're going to connect these dots to these type of players, especially the guys that we're going to talk about more on this show. The guys that want to play for contending teams. Like, Washington is one of those teams now, because I mean, as I was talking about Dan Quinn, when you have the quarterback, you're always in that conversation. Like, even if you're not going to repeat, go to the NFC Championship game every year, when you have that quarterback, and as long as that quarterback is healthy, you're in that conversation every year. And players want to be in those conversations every year, especially when they done with the individual accolades. Like, I done did everything individually, and I'm always going to do my thing individually, but now I want to experience what winning with a team is like. And Washington is going to be one of those teams that pops up in these conversations going forward. We just got to get used to it.
Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start with the kind of like the biggest need for Washington at this point. Trenches. I mean, I think it's no question trenches on both sides of the ball. Like, if anything was exposed in the championship game, and then even the conference, the divisional round, it was the trenches needs significant upgrading, right? Myles Garrett requested a trade, and he sent out a public letter, announcing that he was requesting a trade. I don't blame him at all whatsoever. When the Cleveland Browns has ample time to express a plan to him and express a plan to the team, and they come out with a statement shortly after Deshaun Watson tears his Achilles, the first time that we're moving forward with Deshaun Watson after this season, and then he re-injures his Achilles, I don't think y'all got a real plan either, bro. I don't think y'all taking me seriously. Like, y'all gonna let me wither away on this roster? I want out. Now, what's going to come with Myles Garrett, if he doesn't leave Cleveland, right, is the inevitable contract extension. So whether he wanted that with Cleveland or he actually wants out and he wants that extension or contract restructure, Washington has been one of the more talked about teams in landing Myles Garrett. From an odds perspective, the Cowboys are the highest odds, or excuse me, the lowest odds. I think I said this right. Like, the lowest odds, and then Washington's the second lowest. and like 5-1, and Dallas Cowboys are 4-1. Where are we at with Myles Garrett in terms of, because I think we all want Myles. I do know some people who said they didn't want him, but where are we at with Myles, and what are you willing to give up for a Myles Garrett to get to Washington?
I think you do everything in your power to acquire this player. It's a game record. He's a game changer. He's one of the best players in the NFL overall, top 5. It's not many times a guy of this magnitude can hit the open market, and where he has leverage is he does need an extension, so he can't just be traded anywhere. That opposing team that would inquire about him and feel committed to wanting to acquire him has to be mindful of the fact that they need to sign an extension with him, and there's not many teams on the market with the capital that it takes to do both, whether it be trading draft assets and offering this massive contract. So that's where his leverage kicks in as far as being able to sign a new deal. Man, I think he solves a lot, and he helps you being able to bring in other guys into the fold and them playing off of him. I mean, can you imagine Myles Garrett next to Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen? Yeah, some people are saying, yeah, go ahead and add those guys in the trade package. Those guys ain't Aaron Donald type D tackles. They not impactful in that way. But as we know, you put Myles on the end with those guys, they're not facing the double teams that they've been seeing. You got Myles who can beat one-on-ones, who can beat a double team, who can beat a triple team. Like you could possibly hit on the guy in the draft, but the chances of that is very rare. We see a lot of teams draft defensive ends in the first round and stuff like that, and they typically don't hit of that nature, especially when you're picking at 29. And if you feel confident in how you plan on building off of what you just did, you expect to be picking 29 or higher, even for the following year. So even when these teams are scouting players, they're not just looking at who's coming out next year, they're going beyond that. So they also have an idea of the type of talent that they would be scouting for even 2026 and beyond. So yeah, if it's up to me, you do everything in your power to acquire Myles Garrett. He's a game changer, game record. Also allows you to call your defense a bit differently because you know that you got that one guy that the defense has to key on, where you don't have to blitz as much. It helps everyone out from the front line to the back end. Yeah, I'm doing whatever to get Myles Garrett.
I mean, it's definitely an interesting conversation, but I mean, for me, after the quarterback position, which obviously is the most important position in all of football, I look at the edge rusher position as the second most valuable position in football. I mean, that's the game-breaking position. I mean, that's a position you can kind of consider a guy as a closer on the defense with, because them guys can wreck games, they can end games. You know, they can just change how an offensive coordinator wants to go about the whole day that he's playing against you. So, yeah, I mean, personally, I would love to go after Myles Garrett. I mean, I know when I did my mock offseason, I didn't think that Myles Garrett was actually going to be available. I was like inquire about Max Crosby. But now that you got Myles Garrett in the fold, definitely you make that phone call. You see what Cleveland wants, and you try to, see if you can put an offer together. Now, understand this. If you are going to put an offer together for Myles Garrett, it's going to be astronomical, like to the point where you're talking about you're approaching the draft differently now. Like you may have to go even harder in free agency than you probably initially were. Like I know, Adam Peters has kind of been noted in the past as being a guy that says, we kind of want to build through the draft and supplement through free agency. But if you're getting a Myles Garrett, you may not have a draft. Like you may not have a first round pick for the next couple of years, but these may be high first round picks too. Like this year we're picking 29th. And if you are that team that you expect to be with Jaden Daniels, and if you add a Myles Garrett, you shouldn't be picking any higher than 25, in future draft receivers. So you can kind of look at those late first round draft picks as second round draft picks, in a sense. But the price is going to be high. But if it's one player that's worth it, it's a Myles Garrett, because you got your Jaden Daniels on offense and your Myles Garrett on defense changes everything around that defense. Now, You're probably going to have to get rid of one of the tackles in Allen or Payne, but we've already kind of discussed that because of the money. I mean, because you're going to want to add other positions. This team still needs to add other things. So, one of those guys are probably going to go. But again, it just changes your whole approach. But he is a guy that's definitely worth whatever the asking price is.
I think it's a couple of things. If you do have to get rid of a defensive tackle, I honestly think it's only one option. It's only going to be John, because Deron has no money on no guarantee after this season, but John doesn't have any this offseason. So like if they had to make a move, it'd be John. But to the point of like envisioning what Myles Garrett can bring to the defense, like I think if there's one thing in particular that I learned this season, bro, I don't know if they was using John and Deron properly. And what I mean by that is, I think they've shown through a long series of reps and snaps that they are not good against the run collectively. If you can get these guys a little bit in a little bit more space, I think John Allen's biggest strength is a pass rusher. If you can get him closer to the tackle versus getting them closer to the center, just as three technique, right? Having them live out there in passing situations, I think you can find him useful. It can actually be the same thing applicable for Deron Payne. More so passing situations than actually having these guys on the field for an absorbent amount of snaps. And I don't know how ideal that is with the amount of money they're making, but I think if you want to win with them on the roster, having them in that situation now with a Myles Garrett on your team where you're not necessarily looking at the offensive line having their focus on the interior guys, but now the edge rusher. I think that is a much different look for guys who wins more in the passing game rather they are as a run defender. And that can technically apply for Johnny Newton too, but I'm talking about the two guys who's getting paid the big bucks. And I think about for Myles, when it comes to, so we talked about those two guys, John and Deron, but when it comes to just Myles, generally speaking, outside of what Cleveland is going to do, because I think Myles, Jay Tizzy said that he said it wasn't about money. I think for Washington, you got to be understanding what you about to give up, right? You said it's going to take an enormous haul, Dre. I see people on social media. I bookmark these things. There's a couple people who are still hanging on to the age thing with players. Garrett is going to be 30 in December, I believe. I think that's where his age. I think he turns 30 late. Like he's a real 29 going into the season. He's going to be like a real 30 towards the end of the season versus like 30 going into the season. First and foremost, if you could get 4 years of Myles Garrett playing at an elite level, that's a win. You have not extended Jaden Daniels yet, right? Or you're about to extend Jaden Daniels. You have to maximize the amount of people, the blue chip people, what they call them. I don't even use those. I don't use blue chip, red chips. But I think blue chip is the highest one that people like to throw around. If you can get a blue chip talent on that rookie contract of Jaden's, then you're in good shape. And I'm talking about a person in Myles who, if you can get, like I said, those 4 years of elite production, you're talking about well worth the 2 first-round picks that you may end up spending, the 3rd or 4th round pick that you may end up spending as well. You may get a pick back, whatever that pick may be, so they can give you some relief. And you may end up giving up a player too. I don't know, and I'm not going to speculate who that player is. Shout out to Linnell, bro. He put out a hypothetical. Would you give up 2 first and Frankie Luvu? I told that man, hell no. I ain't doing that, bro. And I'm not saying that on the surface wouldn't be worth it, but what I'm saying is I would think about 5 or 6 other deals before I consider putting in Luvu in a trade package for Myles Garrett. I say all that to say, because I want to get y'all the floor back on this one. Kemi says, I'm not trading 2 first rounders for a 30-year-old pass rusher. I'll do 3/3 in the contract extension.
How old is Von Miller?
Von is like 34, 35.
And he's still balling at a high level, right?
he get his subs and he get his packages in. You know, he do his thing. Let me get two more, bro. Let me get two more. Where Q's Jonathan Allen and the third rounder should be enough. I'm not giving up at first. Remember, the Commanders have the leverage here because Garrett wants to leave. Where it's not like we're trying to trade for Garrett if he didn't want to leave. Incorrect. And I think there was another one, but I am losing it. So that's where we are. Understand what you're trading for. It's going to take a hold, but this person is not a Marshawn, matter of fact. He ain't a Marsh. You know what you're about to get. Like Marshawn came in with some shaky history because of his injuries. This dude is coming in clean slate. He just needs to get the hell out of Cleveland before that's where a career goes to die. He's been there withering away forever. Get him out. Let him win.
Yeah, it's just interesting people's take on these draft picks. Like, if I sat back and asked you who's a top player in 2026 that Washington can utilize in the first round, no one would be able to give me the answer in regards of let's give up a third round pick. And like, even the value that you believe that Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen have on the marketplace, they don't have that value to even be included in those trades. Daron Payne is not tradable, one, for real. It doesn't make sense to do that and have that dead cap. Jonathan Allen, you can make something work. You have flexibility because of the money that you have to you. You don't have blue chip players. You don't have elite players, so you're not really paying no one. Like, yeah, we look at Payne and Allen's contracts, but they're not crazy contracts. It's just you're not paying no one because you don't have talent. You feel me? You don't have elite players that you've had to pay. You're not like, look, the Eagles are able to do it. The Eagles have Jalen Hurts on a crazy contract, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and they're able to maneuver. So why wouldn't Washington be able to maneuver with their pieces? It's all about depth, especially within that defense. So for me, man, when it comes to Myles Garrett, I would give up 3 first, but I don't think that's what it would take. I think it really just boils down to the leverage that Myles does have, which is I'm going to sign an extension there. Cleveland is in a peculiar situation. But at the end of the day, who really wants to be in Cleveland? It's definitely not just about money for him, because he could easily get that contract done in Cleveland and be the highest paid non-quarterback. But it's about him creating a legacy for himself. That's the main reason why he put out this statement. He can go get paid and also truly compete for an opportunity at a Super Bowl. And I just think that Adam Peters has been fortunate to be blessed with having a defensive end of that similar cloth in a Nick Bosa, and how much of an impact that made for their defense. So I think that him seeing that hands-on, and everyone knows the impact of Myles Garrett, like, that is a player that you lose sleep about as an offensive coordinator. Washington has not had a game record defensive player since Sean Taylor.
And defensive end probably since Dexter Manley.
Let's put that into perspective. Like, since Sean Taylor, he was on the back end. Can you imagine what this team would look like with a elite pass rusher and someone that can stop the run? He does everything great, and players are not like back in the day in the early 90s and stuff. Like, 30 means nothing. You feel me? Like, these guys have so much advanced medical things that they could use, training facilities, workouts, whatever, in top-notch shape. Like, this is a freak. Like, Myles Garrett is a freak, bro. Like, so I'm not concerned about no age. Like, I mean, Bobby Wagner just had a hell of a season, made the Pro Bowl, All-Pro team, and he's 35. Like, why am I going to be sitting here worried about Myles Garrett, who's in top-notch shape? Dude, 6'6", 275 with a six-pack. Be worried about him. Like,
Myles,
shoot, I'm sitting here on the show. I'm 37, bro. Like, what? I still feel young. You feel me? Like, I ain't doing what Myles doing, but at the end of the day, we got to stop acting like 30 or 31 is old. Like, that's That's stuff from back in the 90s, man. That don't exist no more. We seeing it in all sports.
They do that with quarterbacks too.
LeBron is 40 years old, bro. Like, look what he's doing. He's still one of the top players in the league.
All
KD's
you
the same age as me. Like, come on, bro.
But yeah, no, it is this stigma, and I think it is probably that Madden culture, because on Madden, once you turn 30, your ratings start dipping every year. But when you're one of the elite type of athletes, you can play for a long time, especially if you take care of your body. And Myles Garrett is one of those dudes that take care of his body. I mean, he's showing no signs of slowing down at all. He's averaging 15 sacks a season over his last 4 years. He's still making all pro teams at his age. Like, there's like, and I mentioned Von Miller earlier, Khalil Mack's another guy, in recent memory that's playing well into their 30s, still at a high level at the pass rusher position. Like, that's one position that you can still, if you can play, you can play. Like, even I can even go back 25 years ago when we had Bruce Smith. Now, Bruce Smith was semi-washed when he came to Washington, but he was still a hell of a damn threat. He's much older than Myles Garrett is by the time he got to Washington. So, I mean, my point is that pass rushers can play well into their 30s, and it's been evidenced over time. Like, a lot of fans just don't take into account of that. And like I said, Myles Garrett is a guy that hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. So I don't really care about the age thing. And I just go back to my original point. Myles Garrett is worth whatever they want at this point for him, and if Adam Peters can find something to make it work for him, I mean, you got to make it happen, because like I said, he changes that whole defense. And I actually think the one guy that'll start to get in fans' favor with the Myles Garrett trade is Marshawn Lattimore. Like, that helps the cornerbacks, that helps the secondary out so much. It just changes the defense.
On him yet. I ain't gonna lie to you.
I mean,
part of that. I didn't heard people say this whole time too, and this y'all got the last floor. I just gotta say something about Marshawn, bro. People have been saying, bro, like, and it's cliche, like, you improve the pass rush, secondary plays better. That's true. Like, that's a default fact that nobody can argue against, and I hate that's why I hate why people throw it out. Like, you got to look at, like, when people said that about Emmanuel Forbes going into this season, and just Emmanuel Forbes generally, bro, and Emmanuel Forbes did not get better. I look at Marshawn, bro. You got to look at Marshawn by his own. And I'm not saying Marshawn is trash. I'm not saying that. I just have questions. I am not sold if you get Myles Garrett.
Is it the technique outside of the injuries?
Athletically, not technique. Athletically, I think I'm not sold on him, and I need to see him play better before I'm over here like, yeah, the pass rush has helped him out. I need to see him play better. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I ain't sold on him yet, but I think it'll apply for Mikey Sanders still, and some other cornerbacks that we may get. But I gotta see something with Marshawn, bro.
Man, I guarantee Marshawn will be better, man.
Sounds good.
I mean, I just think that a lot of people don't understand that every organization is different as far as like rehab and treatment during the season with players, and I just feel like he was just trying to push himself through his hamstring issue. And I know hands-on that the Saints don't really spend a lot of money in their rehab process for their players. I mean, they're managed by the same exact team that cares for the Pelicans. And we see what's happening with Zion throughout his career over there. So that's just to put it out there. But I mean, We'll see at the end of the day. I just hope that whenever this trade takes place, that we're not sitting on the other side of this conversation saying, damn, we didn't get Myles Garrett. I think that Adam Peters, that's another thing. Like, the way that they lost as far as score-wise, that brings fire to the front office, the head coaching staff or whatever to get over that hill. I mean, just take how, you, Mual, you taking the loss, Dre and other people. Just imagine how those that have to actually make these decisions and try to improve this roster are feel.
Yeah, I was 2 seconds away from canceling the show, driving up to Philly, bro. Seeing anybody I could find, bro.
Yeah,
it was on.
So I mean, it's just like, you just think about that brings Phil to the fire of getting over the cliff. And it'll be interesting to see what gets done. But I think the draft, what a lot of people have to also understand is the draft is really made up of the other rounds, not necessarily the first round picks. Even the Adam Peters that a lot of people champion, the guys that they've hit on in San Francisco weren't necessarily first round picks. I mean, Debo's a second round pick.
First off, you get Myles Garrett, and you spend first round picks primarily. It ain't nobody out of these next two draft classes that's gonna be better than Myles Garrett coming out.
Exactly. So you got Debo Samuel, that's not a first round pick, George Kittle, Hugh Funga, Fred Warner, and so many other names. That's just from the 49ers, but the rest of the NFL that aren't first round picks that are premier players in this league. So I just think that that's something to take into account when you mention, oh, first round pick is too much. I'll do this, I'll do that. I mean, shoot, Washington just traded Emmanuel Forbes and Jahan Dotson, and they were first round picks.
Let's go ahead and get into the other two guys. But first and foremost, let's talk about these individuals here at Underdog Fantasy, right? Underdog is well, first off, let's reset. This is the best app for your big game party, right? Big game. It's called Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is the best place to cash in all your takes during the big game. Which players are going off and which ones are ice cold. Make your entries in just a few taps. With their pick'em game, you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on players' stats such as passing yards, touchdowns, interceptions, or more. Hey, look, I ain't make all of my plays yet, but there is a big game no sweat available on Underdog right now. And if you are a person that likes to dibble and dabble in some wagers, right, making picks, right, you know what a no sweat mean. Go ahead and have some fun this weekend, man. I think they're giving back up to like $10, I believe, or $20. But I want to say, let me check. I think it's $10 max. Either way, you can have you some fun on Underdog Fantasy this weekend for the big game. I know I'm about to take advantage of that this upcoming Thursday when I got to clock in the city. You see what I'm saying? But you know I got to get Pat Mahomes on the jump. He's at 30.5 rushing yards, 255.5 yards passing. Honestly, I don't see anything where he ain't going higher than 255.5. So I'm gonna go ahead and slap the high on his passing yards. Where is my man? Matter of fact, Jalen Hurts is at 213 passing yards, 213.5. Slap the high on that one. I think they're gonna need his arm against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then who was the receiver I was looking for? Xavier Worthy. He's at 55.5 receiving yards. This is gonna be a good game for him. And I'm in full hate mode. I'm a hater. I think Philly got a good chance to win, but it's the only compliment I'm gonna give Philly this entire week because I'm in full hate mode after I said that. I need Xavier Worthy to go off. And I'm slapping the high on 55.5. I got a couple more, but I'm gonna stop it there. Those are my three for sure that I'm picking. They got all your favorite leagues, teams, and styles to choose from. You can create entries with all football picks or mix and match across from your other favorite sports. Underdog is the only platform to play pick'em. Only pick'em platform, that puts power to cash in your hands. You can now either keep riding with your entry or tap win now the button to cash out whenever you want. And every dog deserves a chance. So with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive an early promo if an injury causes your entry to lose. Underdog is the best place to play pick'em. Don't forget, download the app, sign up using promo code TrapperDive, and deposit now to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That is promo code TrapperDive. You must be 18 years or older, 19 years or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 years or older in Colorado for some games, 21 or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Born in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncbgambling.org. If you're in Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. If you're in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. All right. I don't think I'm out of breath at all. Okay. So where is he at? Let me go. All Talk. What's up, All Talk? He said, would we be able to afford T and Myles? I won both. All Talk, you are not the only person who brought that up. Somebody else mentioned today. Where is the tweet? And I do not agree with him, and I do not think, to answer your question, we would be able to afford both. But when I asked the question, T, Coop, or Myles, More importantly, I said or, right? Devin, what's up, Devin? I don't know if you're listening or watching. Give me T and Myles and a corner this free agency. Fuck it. Draft Travion and whoever and develop accordingly. I ain't gonna lie to you, buddy. Devin, I don't like how you just said that so casually. Like you can just afford, you have all the assets in the world to trade for both. That's not gonna happen, and that's why I put the question and phrase it the way it was: T Coop or Myles. I think a lot of us want Myles, but there's also some people out there who advocated for Cooper Kupp, which is why he's in the conversation. And then there's some people who responded and advocated for T Higgins as well.
We got one of our co-hosts advocating for Darius Slayton.
Well, I mean, that's a free agent though, right?
Yeah, it's a free agent.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that.
And what exactly is wrong with that, AJ?
He can't catch Ebola or COVID.
I mean, he gets 700 yards a damn season, so he's catching something.
Yeah, they ain't got nobody. They ain't got nobody else to throw the damn ball to.
Well, they had Malik Neighbors this past season.
Hey, man.
And you had Daniel Jones at quarterback with Saquon Barkley led offense for most of those years.
I'm about to say, honestly, at the end of, we can talk about free agency in a second, like literally like a couple episodes, but at the end of the day, when you only got Slayton and whoever the hell else, like think about it like De'Ami Brown the last 4 seasons. What he ain't had no yeah. He was number 2, number 3.
De'Ami's best season was Slayton's worst season production wise.
So T Higgins, y'all.
Where we got something on De'Ami.
I'm just saying.
Where we at with T? This is one of the players that before any news about Myles came out, like shoot, people was even advocating for Kyle Pitts. I saw that on the Commanders Morning Show Friday. I seen some who was it? Max Crosby. T Higgins has been a consistent name throughout the entire season, and now in the off season's here. Where are we at with T? Is this a guy that you would still be willing to give up assets for, given the context of knowing that Myles Garrett is out there? It not saying it's either one or the other, but like, would you be willing to invest in inquiring about T? And what would you be willing to give up?
I mean, I think when you look at T Higgins, if he hits the open market, the benefit of hitting the open market is getting overpaid. And at the wide receiver position, that's going to happen. If he does hit the open market, you're talking about possibly hitting $30 million plus for him to sign a deal with teams that's vying for services. I'm not okay with that. I'm not cool with paying T Higgins $30 million plus. Not at all. So yeah, if he hits the open market, I'm out. If the number is 30 million, I will definitely go in another direction. That direction could be, yeah, it could be giving a guy like a Stephon Diggs a chance. That could be something else, bro. Like I'm not paying T Higgins 30 million plus, bro. I'm just not doing it. And if I need to possibly inquire about Jamar Chase, I mean, we really don't know what all is going to happen because they have a peculiar situation there in Cincinnati. But I think I would pass on T Higgins if it hits 30 million. I think that other guys would be possibly available, such as a Deebo Samuel, that you could look into. I'm not like the greatest fan of a DK Metcalf, but I understand his athleticism. I would be interested in.
Hold on. Are these people that's out there, or are we speculating that we should inquire about their services? Is this a Kyle Pitts thing? Because that annoyed me to no end on Friday. Like that shit has not been that's not even.
I mean,
what are we doing?
These things that I'm mentioning are from my own resources. Kyle Pitts thing is a real thing. Like it's a real thing. So I mean, I don't really know what all the public is saying, but yeah, so it's not like I'm saying, oh, trade for Justin Jefferson. But yeah, these are real things. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. This is the week where a lot of other news will be coming out during Super Bowl week, media week. A lot of that coverage really kicks up starting the Mual. So yeah, I'm just not in favor of paying T. Higgins $30 million plus, and that's what's going to happen if he hits the open market. That's exactly where the number is going to begin.
Yeah, I mean, I actually was talking about this earlier, well, for the last couple of weeks with people. But T. Higgins, in my opinion, I don't think if a contending team already has a number one wide receiver, no contending team, I think, is going to sign T. Higgins. I think he's looking to go somewhere to be that number one guy, but I just don't think that that's necessary for a winning formula for a team that's trying to get to the champ or to the Super Bowl to have, multiple high salary wide receivers on your team. Like, I just don't think it makes sense. Like, look at the best quarterbacks in the league. When you talk about Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, I mean, those guys usually just have one solid wide receiver or one elite wide receiver or close to elite, and then they have a bunch of other solid guys around them, because that quarterback doesn't need to have all of these high paid wide receivers to throw to be successful. This quarterback can elevate wide receivers. Now, you need better than what you have in that room right now. Absolutely. That's what we've been talking about. But you don't need a T. Higgins or bust type of offseason. Like, I've had this conversation with people. Like, people are telling me, man, you got to go sign T. Higgins because the rest of the free agent wide receiver class is just horrible, which is why AJ kind of talking to me about Darius Slayton. But I mean, that's a solid, that's an upgrade to the room that doesn't cost that much. That's the type of things I think you kind of look for. And I think what you're looking for when, if you want a T. Higgins, I personally think you need to draft a T. Higgins. That's what Cincinnati Bengals did. The Cincinnati Bengals didn't go out and spend, a buku money on T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Those are homegrown talents, and I think that's what Adam Peters has to kind of, find his own guy in the draft. And I do think that, if you can sign a solid wide receiver in free agency, not an elite guy, not the outside of T. Higgins, no one's close to that in this free agency class, but you need guys that can get you to that next guy, to that homegrown talent, like guys that can upgrade the room while you're trying to find that guy. But I just don't think it makes sense for a contending team to sign T. Higgins just to be the other wide receiver, which he was in Cincinnati for $30+ million. Like, that's not a winning formula to me.
Well, I think another aspect to consider is, like I said, once again, once you hit free agency, especially at that marquee position of wide receiver, you're going to break the bank. So if you pay a T. Higgins $30 million plus, you got to give Terry McLaurin just about the same or more. I just don't see Washington. I see T. Higgins, if he hits free agency, signing with the Carolina Panthers. They're going to break the bank for him. He might hit 33 million.
That makes sense.
He might hit 33 because you're pitting yourself against other teams. So even Washington has to figure out, we're going to be bidding for this guy. And some people just want their bread. Not everyone wants to win a championship. Yeah. Not everyone has that desire.
Especially somebody who's coming off a contract where, this is his first one where he really gets to, take the highest bidder. He's on his rookie deal right now.
Yeah. So it's just like, it would be very attractive for him to be paired alongside a Bryce Young, be in the Carolina market, be marketed as a franchise guy, not come into a situation feeling like he's a 1-2 again or a number 2, because that's what he's going through with, Cincinnati with Jamar. Yeah, they got a good relationship, but, it's kind of hard to want to step out that shadow and then you get thrown right back into the mix of being alongside Terry McLaurin. So that's where I just think that overall Washington is interested in T. Higgins, but after it hits a certain threshold money-wise, they have to pull themselves out, and Carolina can go ahead and play that game and pair him with Xavier Legette. So I'll just say my prediction is T. Higgins is a Carolina Panther if he is free agency.
Yeah, free agency and trade is one thing. I think that one to Carolina as a free agent makes a ton of sense. I also think, like, just from a trade perspective, I don't think it benefits Washington. I don't think free agency works with Washington too. I think here's my deal. I was always against a T because of his injury history. On the morning show, like, I went line by line about like his frequency to be injured. Now, granted, you can look at his games played and you can see that he didn't miss a ton of games, right, a season, but he had stretches where he missed like a game or two here and there, but he'd be dealing with like lower body injuries if he was active. But the ones that he did miss, it was because they were lower body injuries. And like he just generally stayed hurt. So like I can't even pay you a lot of money and trust a player like that on my side. Now, AJ put up a good point in terms of like a medical situation. Like everything ain't the same around the NFL. Like, and I was aware of that, but at the same time, Washington has done a tremendous job of making sure they're competitive at every single aspect of football, from treatment of players to travel arrangements to making sure that they're prepared, like from a game planning standpoint. They've done everything that they can to make sure that their players are effectively able to do their best when they're on the field. But T isn't a guy where I look at this situation and I say, one, I'm willing to give up assets for this guy from a trade perspective, and then have to pay him more than Terry. Now that you think about it, because Terry at this point, he's due a contract extension after the year that he just put up. Like his I think he's going into the last year's deal. He only signed a 3-year extension. So he's going into the last year's deal. That's one. And then two, if you do go into free agency and there's no second franchise tag for T, who am I competing against? AJ mentioned the Carolina Panthers. They're not the only guys. Tennessee got a lot of money. Some other teams got a lot of money that's not off the top of my head right now. So Washington isn't going to be the only team competing for a team. And at that point, the price drives up. And I don't think T is going to be out here taking huge discounts, especially with the direction that his agent may give him. I don't think that he's going to be out here taking huge discounts. Like Frankie Louvu took a pay cut to come to Washington. I can see that because, one, I don't know how much he was going to get paid on the open market. Like, it may have been competitive, but he took the lesser deal to come to Washington. I think Jeremy Chin took the same thing as well, if I'm not mistaken. Like, these guys didn't get high-end contracts compared to what T would get. So it's probably easier for them to take like lesser deals, lesser financial or annual average deals or things like that. So I look at T and I'm just saying, yeah, bro, like from a money perspective, it doesn't make sense to me. And then from a health perspective, I think Washington, the team, if Myles Garrett wasn't out there and he was a trade option, I'm sure that they would consider it, and I'm sure they wouldn't hesitate if they saw him as that guy. But I wouldn't do it. I would drive myself crazy thinking about it's week 14 and you're tied for first. Oh, and by the way, you won't have T. Higgins because he hurt his hamstring again, but he's been out for 2 weeks already. And you hoping he came back this week, but now he got to miss another week, and the division title's on the line. The winner gets to sit their starters in week 7 or week 18 after this game. I don't know. That's just where my head at. I can't do it, bro.
But see, Mo, that's the conversation that we had all season with Marshawn Lattimore. Like, most of this fan base damn near turned on Marshawn Lattimore even before they even seen him get on the field. When he was out them first 3 to 4 weeks, they were over Marshawn Lattimore. You know, we got sold a lemon. And then you bring in a T. Higgins who has missed at least 10 games over the last 2 seasons, 5 games each season. Like, this is starting to become a trend. Now he comes here, he's doing the same thing, but he's making 30+ million. How the hell do you think you're going to feel at that point? Like I said, a lot of fans, and not to come off a certain type of way to people, but they just get caught up in name recognition with certain guys. And I know the name, and that name sounds good, and I want that guy, but you don't kind of think of everything until he gets here. Then you're like, wow, why do we sign this guy? Why do we give this guy money? Hey, Adam Peters is stupid. That's when you start criticizing everybody in the front office and everything. So that's one of the things, like I said, especially for a team in Washington's position now. Like, you're not talking about a team like in Carolina's position. That's why I said with AJ, that makes sense for T. Higgins, because Carolina isn't in Washington's position right now. They can make T. Higgins a number 1 guy. He can be their number 1 guy over there, and they got time, to get to whatever level they want to get to. But Washington now, expectations have sped up and everything's going to be scrutinized. Everything's under a microscope now for this team. Like anything, there's a thin margin for error now when it comes to, all right, man, we got, like you said, a playoff game, or, this is a game that gets us the division on the line right here. And you need all hands on deck. And if your big money guys aren't reliable or they aren't healthy, you start to scrutinize those things, and those things become big things. So yeah, I just don't think it makes sense for Washington to go out there and spend that much money on a wide receiver number 2, possibly wide receiver number 1 with T. Higgins, because like I said, you still got Terry, and I don't think it's necessary to have that many high-profile guys at the receiver position with a quarterback like Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, man, I think when you think about T. Higgins, man, for $30 million, you might as well talk about Tyreek Hill. Hold on, Jay Tyler, where are you getting this 30 M's for? Are you referring to Cooper Kupp?
He's talking about he is though. But he's talking about Coop, Slayton, and Noah B like for a combined 30 M's. But let's go ahead and talk about let's talk about Coop right now, because we got to go ahead and get ready to end the show. But Cooper Kupp, he came out and sent his little farewell letter. That is a little disrespectful when people say that. But he put out his farewell letter to the Rams saying it was unexpected, but the Rams were committed. They went out there all ripped, said, yeah, bro, we don't want him. We got to get rid of him. Send your best offers. Best offer gets him. Come on, put your bids in. And he's 20 mil a year right now, which isn't a bad number actually for any receiver, honestly, of his caliber. Just on the surface level, he's like, from a skill set standpoint, that's a good number for Cooper. But where are we at with him as it relates to a Washington perspective? What are your thoughts on Cooper?
I mean, for me, he's a guy I wouldn't mind. Especially for the right price draft wise. I mean, now if you talk about trading for a Myles Garrett, you may not have, the luxury of trading for a Cooper Kupp. But if you're just talking about the standalone, if you can trade for a 3rd or 4th rounder for Cooper Kupp, I don't think it's bad, because, a lot of fans are saying he's washed. I mean, he's maybe not the Cooper Kupp he once was, but he's still a damn productive receiver from the slot position. And then you think about when people were talking about Zach Ertz last year, everyone thought Zach Ertz was washed, but Zach Ertz came out there and damn near put up, one of his better seasons in the later portion of his career. So, I do think that that's the kind of thing you think about with a Cooper Kupp. If you're bringing here, you're thinking that, the quarterback can still get some use out of him. I mean, he was still, kind of a security blanket for Matt Stafford for the most part. But I do think that one of the big factors in this whole thing is Puka Nakua's development. Like, Puka Nacua has become a much younger version of Cooper Kupp, and he's become a very reliable target to the point where it's kind of some overlap with those two guys. So I think that may factor into this decision more so than Cooper Kupp being washed. Like I say, he may not be Cooper Kupp from 2-3 years ago, but I do think there's still some productivity there. But again, I mean, it just depends on how the rest of this offseason go. If you can't make the big move for like a Myles Garrett, which is going to cost a lot of draft capital, I don't mind a move for Cooper Kupp, because I do think he's another receiver that makes this wide receiver room better. Like, I mean, even at his age, I definitely think he makes this wide receiver room better.
Yeah, I think he does make the room better. And I think for Washington, if you can have their own Swiss Army knife, like he can. Well, I would say nowadays he's like a 1st and 2nd level threat. I think his route running is top tier to the point where he can win on all 3 levels. Like, he knows how to dot you up. Especially if he can manipulate your leverage, and get defenders out of position. So I think he's a high IQ player, right? And I think that bodes well for any quarterback, especially if they can get on the same page. That's the reason why Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp was so successful. And honestly, any quarterback that played with Cooper, they were just so successful. I mean, Jared Goff had his time with him, and in between that, before Matt Stafford got there, I think they had some time with. I may be drawing a blank. No, yeah, maybe drawing a blank. And I know that was a trade between Matt Stafford and Jared Goff, so I can't remember those backups who had that short period with him. But he worked with pretty much any quarterback. Is bottom line, point blank period. From a skill set standpoint, I think it would work. He's in the same boat as T with me. I would be hesitant about the amount of money you give him, as well as the injury history behind him. Kupp has been an injured player the last couple years, and I think that's a little that makes me hesitant. I don't know if I can really think of a player where it's like, let's trade for this guy and we can compete for championships if we bring Kupp in, and have to rely on him being healthy for, hoping to be healthy for at least give us 15 games. Like, I don't know. And also another thing, this year was so weird. I don't know if we got any same game parlayers out there. But if you do, and the only reason why I bring that up, or even fantasy football, we don't have to do gambling, but we gamble on the show. He had several games this year where he had where the F is Kupp at? Like, he had several of those games where he's having 1 or 2 receptions, or maybe even 1 or 2 targets. And that may be a product of the game flow. But like, you rarely see Kupp go a full 60-minute game and have those games where he ain't getting no targets. And that's happened about 2 or 3 times this year. And that's a lot for Kupp. So I don't know what that's about. And that's typically not a situation for Kupp, but I don't know if trading for him. I also think, actually, let me reverse that. Because of his number and because of the fact that the Rams put that out there already, you can probably get him for cheap. He already has a high contract, relatively high contract. You're not going to pay a King's ransom compared to like Myles, Garrett, or even T. Higgins. So you can probably get him for like a low-end draft pick. So that is something to consider. And that may be a solid deal for a team out there. And maybe you could mess around and get both. Myles and Kupp. You ain't got to restructure Kupp. Like, his contract expired. But at the end of the day, I think for Washington, if you want to salvage your assets from like your offseason, your draft picks and things like that, I don't know if Kupp is going to be the right person to invest in. But I do think whoever gets Kupp is still getting a good deal. It reminds me like Adam Thielen. Like, he went to Carolina, still cooking. He like 33, 34 years old. Now, he ain't the number one, but he was Carolina's number one. So I just think that was a good situation for him. And I think Kupp can find the same deal for like a couple more years. But, we'll see where that goes. I just don't know if that's going to be in Washington.
I think when it comes to Cooper Kupp, man, he's definitely not a number one anymore. But he could be a viable piece within this Washington offense, especially being able to run option routes and taking advantage of the middle of the field. He could be an extension of your tight end game, especially when you don't know what you have in a Ben Sinnott. You also have a John Bates, who's not a route running tight end, but he's a free agent. Zach Ertz is probably going to be coming back, but he's on the late end of his career. So I think that Cooper Kupp could be a great guy in the slot. And he also can block in the run game. I just think that Sean McVay and company have just realized like they now are going to use Puka Nacua and have been using him as their Cooper Kupp. And they want to probably add more speed to their wide receiver room because at the end of the day, Cooper eats best in the slot. He can route you up. He's quick, agile. He understands defenses and coverages. And also, with a Cooper Kupp trade, you possibly only have to pay him $12 million for this year versus the $20 million. So it all depends on what's going on. I think what the Rams are trying to do is see if they're gonna get what they hope to from the trade. But I ultimately think he could possibly even get released. Like, if it comes down to it, it just really boils down to fit. Can Cliff Kingsbury possibly work with that? Hell yeah, he could work with him in the slot. I mean, just think about it. You had Zacchaeus and Crowder having to play that slot primarily this year. If you have Terry on one side, Cooper Kupp at the slot, and then whatever you do at the other outside wide receiver position and adding to that backfield as far as threat in the run and pass game, it can open up a lot. So I would love to see Kupp here if for the right price, but not to be looked upon as being a number one. I would say a number two, number three, but primarily being that slot guy. I wouldn't look for him being the person to necessarily pair on the outside with Terry. He's not a number one anymore. He's definitely a slot demon, which you can still eat in the league.
Yeah, I agree with you. Question, but this is the last thing we gotta get up out of here. I got get ready for the next show. Didn't we go to Stop Smacking for you know whose podcast thing, Drake? That was the restaurant, right? Stop Smacking, like a couple years ago.
Oh, DC, yeah, George Avenue.
Okay, all right. So I just saw on it's gonna be all right. So I just saw on social media that Stop Smacking is replacing Largo's Pizza and Kettering. So it's actually about to be right down the street.
So they're franchising.
So, okay. Like, either they franchising or they got rid of it. I don't know. Yeah, or maybe they moving. I have no idea. Yeah. But it's gonna be a Stop Smacking in Largo now or in Kettering. So that's gonna be interesting, bro. Because all we got around here is Jasper's.
Yeah, and hey, you gotta pack a bulletproof vest to go up in that joint.
They better hire the whole entire Prince George's police force, because even the Stop Smacking in DC ain't necessarily the greatest crowd.
Yeah, I be
and one of my boys is an investor in it, and that'd be interesting. So God bless.
Stop serving Hennessy at restaurants. That's the problem.
Nah. We need
Hennessy.
That sound like a coded. Drink. That sound like a coded thing you just said.
I
know what Hennessy do to me.
Yeah, we seen you on the dance floor, bro, with Shorty, bro.
Man, I just looked at a tweet last night that made me remember. I tweeted Dre over here dancing like a white girl. We was at Santana's joint.
Yeah, bro. Dre was getting his boogie on, bro.
Hey, have fun, man.
Dre was raising the roof, bringing his hair back.
Hey.
I mean, shoot, Shorty, she had a good time, bro. You made her have a great night. All right, so we back. All 32 back tomorrow. Commanders Morning Show Friday morning. The fellas will be back. I think we'll have 2 shows next week. We work on that schedule. Trying to get into the studio. So hopefully we have a studio show this weekend. Jay Tizzy is funny as hell. But that's gonna wrap it up for us, bro. Y'all enjoy y'all night, bro. And we'll talk in a couple days. Peace. Chop it down. Chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Damn, set. Watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.